Did you know that your Myers-Briggs personality type is part of a family? The 16 Myers-Briggs personalities can be split up into 4 different families, each of which have 4 personality types within them. Because 4 times 4 equals 16. I bet you didn't think there would be that much math in this video. I'm going to explain what the 4 families are of the 16 personalities, tell you a little bit about each one and why it matters. Now, first of all, when you're out there talking to the personality nerds, they will often refer to this concept of the families as the Quadra. And the 4 Quadra are Alpha, Beta, Gamma, Delta, but you know, we've already done enough math on this channel, and the whole Quadra thing just sounds too mathy. I just think the term family works much better. Plus, you know, on this channel, it's all about family. I say it all the time. It's all about the family on the Frank James channel. So what determines what personality types are in a family together? Good question, I'm glad you asked. Well, all 4 types within a family have the same 4 cognitive functions. If you don't know what cognitive functions are, no worries. I made a whole video explaining everything about it. You can click this card above my head to find out more. In short, cognitive functions are the real building blocks of what make a personality type a personality type. And since we're talking about families here, you could look at the cognitive functions as being kind of like the DNA of a type. The quick and easy way to figure out what types go together in a family are to look at the last 3 letters of the type. So a family will have 2 types with the same last 3 letters, and then 2 more types with the opposite 3 last letters of those first 2 types. So let's look at the first family and you'll see what I mean. The first family we'll look at are the SFJs and the NTPs. So look at those last 3 letters. You have ISFJ, ESFJ, and then the opposite of SFJ is NTP. So you have INTP and ENTP. Those 4 personality types all have the same 4 cognitive functions, just in different orders. So the SFJs, they generally prefer introverted sensing, extroverted feeling, and the NTPs generally prefer extroverted intuition, introverted thinking. And when I say prefer, of course I mean that that's what those types tend to rely on. They all have both of those. So the NTPs also have introverted sensing and extroverted feeling. They just don't prefer to use them. The SFJs have extroverted intuition and introverted thinking. They just don't prefer to use them. I think the most interesting observations to make here are to look at the introverted functions paired up and the extroverted functions paired up. So these types, if you look at their extroverted functions, have NEFE, extroverted intuition, extroverted feeling. So when these types are going full outgoing extrovert mode, it's NF, intuition feeling, which is like the hardest function pairing to really pin down. That function pairing is the least connected to any kind of reality, because the intuition is all about the abstract and the feeling is all about like people's gut reactions to things and how they value stuff, which isn't based on logic, and it's all extroverted. So extroverted intuition is like, how can we come up with as many abstract connections as possible? How do we look at this one thing and come up with as many meanings behind it as we can? And how do we come up with as many possibilities for what the future could hold? Whereas extroverted feeling is very aware of what is the spectrum of values. What do people place importance on? How do other people feel about stuff? How do they prioritize stuff? Let's all take that into consideration. So you put those 2 together and it's sort of like, let's come up with a bunch of possibilities. Let's look at all the different potential connections between things as it relates to what everyone values. Meanwhile, this family's introverted world is SITI, introverted sensing, introverted thinking, and ST is the opposite of NF, so it is like the most grounded, realistic function pairing. And when you make it introverted, it's very like narrowly focused and tries to go very deeply and thoroughly into things. So you get introverted sensing, which is really focused in on reality, like physical reality and the facts, and getting those organized and looking at them through a fine-tooth comb. Yeah, that's right. Looking at them through a comb. And then processing it along with introverted thinking, which is a logical process. How do I put the puzzle pieces together for myself? Like, not really looking out for help from other people, not trying to come up with, oh, this person said to do it this way and this other person said to do it this way, but that way is better than that way. No, it's like, I got to figure it out all on my own. I got to make sure it is logical for me. I have to understand every single part of the logical procedure. So you put SI-TI together, and that is like, man, that's like one of the most thorough inner processing function pairings you can get for coming up with how to get stuff to work in reality. But it's going to be slower because it's introverted, and it's going to be personal. Introverted stuff is personal, so the SI-TI together may not be doing things very fast, but it may get one thing done very thoroughly. So let's move on to the next family, and I'm not going through these families in any particular order, just so you know. So we'll talk about the NTJs and the SFPs next. The NTJs prefer You can see it on the screen. So their exterior world is SETE, extroverted sensing, extroverted thinking, which that function pairing together, so we just talked about ST is like the most rational, let's get stuff done in the real world. When you make it extroverted, it is just constantly looking for new stuff to get done. It's gonna be objective and trying to accomplish things and work things out as quickly as possible. It will never rest. It will just keep going. So look at the inner world though of these types, INTJ, ENTJ, ISFP, ESFP. They have NIFI, introverted intuition, introverted feeling. So while the exterior world of these types is focused in on reality and how to just get things accomplished, the inner world is that abstract and feelings-based processing. The NI is saying, what meanings do I give to things? How do I abstractly categorize the world around me? What singular pathway do I see into the future? What do I think is going to happen 10 years from now? And also, how do I emotionally relate to it? How do I feel about it? Do I love it? Do I hate it? What's important to me? So obviously, with all these families, the extroverted world is the opposite of the introverted world, and generally, the way that Myers-Briggs is set up, each type only prefers one of each of the introverted and extroverted world. But it's still interesting because these qualities of the extroverted and interior world do affect how all of these types within a family will interact with others and how they will process things out on their own, especially that inner processing, because when you're not necessarily coming out to other people using a function, it's easy to do it internally and not have to, feel like the stakes are too high. What I mean is, even if a personality type doesn't prefer a certain introverted function, let's say just as an example, it's introverted feeling, you get an INTJ who doesn't prefer that, they can still be processing with it internally. They can still be very aware of it and know what's going on with their introverted feeling and what they like and don't like and what they value and don't value. It's just that ultimately, they don't prefer to use that to make decisions with. In part 2 of the video, we will talk about the other two families and why it's so important to know your personality type's family. The next family we'll look at are the STJs, NFPs. Man, this is an odd family. STJs prefer introverted sensing, extroverted thinking. NFPs prefer why can't I talk? The exterior world of these types is NT, extroverted intuition, extroverted thinking. Let's look at the abstract and let's make a bunch of connections abstractly and see all the different possibilities, but then also connect that with getting things done, with working out the logic extrovertedly, so we're looking just for the best possible way. We're aware of everyone's different logic so that we can figure out, oh, actually, this person over here has the best way forward. Let's use the tools they're using. Let's use the logic that they've worked out. We don't need to understand it ourselves at a granular level. We just need to know that it works. When you get intuition thinking together, that's like the most advanced function pairing because it's thinking So it's rooted in how do we accomplish something, but then it's also intuition. So it's looking a bit further beyond the physical concrete world and looking towards the possibilities. So these types in super extrovert mode, you know, can come across as very nerdy and very smart. Their interior world though is SF, which is looking at the world, the real concrete world and the facts and everything, and then how do I feel about it? SI-FI. It's an interesting introverted processing system because it's very aware of every detail, looking at how do I arrange all the facts and what has actually happened in reality, and then how do I value that? How do I feel about it? SI, introverted sensing, is a lot of times about organization, right? But it's organizing not just in the sense of let me put books on a shelf, but it's organizing for the self as though how do I arrange these facts of things that have happened to me to make a story, to make sense of it, and then how do I feel about that story when I pair it with FI. The final family in the 16 personalities are the NFJs and the STPs. And this family, this is another crazy family. They're all crazy when you think about it. These are the functions they prefer. I'm not even going to try to narrate it this time. Their extroverted world is FESE, which this is a wild pairing of functions. It's SF, real world, and feelings, but it's extroverted. So it's not like we had before where it's like, what is the story? What has happened to me? How do I arrange that? How do I feel about it? It's like, woo, let's have new experiences. Let's see just everything that's out there. That's the extroverted sensing. In the real world, all the different experiences in the concrete reality. And then it's all the stuff that everyone thinks is fun, that everyone enjoys, the extroverted feeling. What can everyone get in on? Let's become aware of how everyone likes or dislikes something and then do stuff so that everyone can be happy. But then the inner world of these types is NT, introverted intuition, introverted thinking. How do I abstractly assign meanings to things and make connections between things and categorize things? And you know, introverted intuition is always trying to reduce. It's like a funnel. I've explained it many times like this. It's like a funnel that takes in concrete reality and facts and, you know, the world around you, and then tries to reduce it into the smallest compact meaning as possible. You could also look at introverted intuition as like a pot on simmer, where you put in a bunch of liquid and stuff, and then over time it's just reducing it to its essence. It's really trying to boil things down. And introverted thinking, as we've mentioned before, it's trying to work out problems and figure out what is logical for the self in a very meticulous way. You get that dichotomy of, woo, let's have fun. Well, everyone's having fun together in the real world on the outside, but then the very introverted side of them is, how do I plan things out and make things work for myself? And I just want to point out with this particular family, with the INFJs in particular, there's this whole thing about the NITI loop, which I have made a video about before and made it seem like a negative thing. But the reality is that it's not. Like the whole thing about loops, you know, and we've talked about that with all of these families, the different loops you can get in. Loops, like really they're not bad in and of themselves. Any kind of getting too much into your head is bad. It doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't have to do with cognitive function so much though. So INFJs, don't be worried about NITI. Like that's a really good thing to have. You have to be able to use NITI together to be able to like figure out your life and do things your way. Likewise, you INFPs watching, you have to be able to do your FI-SI loop, which a lot of people are like, oh man, that'll make the INFPs depressed because they're just thinking about their life and everything. But it's like, no, the reason why INFPs can be such great storytellers and poets and, you know, artists, etc., is because of that SI-FI. I'm not as well versed in like the INTPs with a TI-SI loop. I don't even know I don't even know what that would be. And you never hear people talk to ISFJs about like, oh man, you're in that SITI loop. See, I think it just falls apart at a certain point. All that's being said, don't worry about the loops, baby. Embrace them. It's part of your personality type. Now, why is it so important to know your family in the 16 personalities? In my opinion, it's because you will have the easiest time communicating with and relating to those types in your family. You are all, in a sense, speaking the same language because especially your extroverted decision-making function, whatever it is, thinking or feeling, those are really responsible for a lot of the communication that we have. And then you look at the perception functions, the intuition and sensing, that dictates how we are really making sense of everything around us and the information that we take in and what we find relevant and not relevant, which also affects our communication. That's not to say that you can't communicate with people in other families, but I think it's good to know because it does make you realize, oh, if I'm an INFP, maybe I do have a lot more in common with an ESTJ than I thought I did, and maybe I can actually communicate quite easily with them. Thanks for watching. Check out another video right here, or check out the whole darn playlist right here. Learn something else, and until next time, stay cool and attractive.